Hello, my name is Carol May Whittick. Welcome to Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract our highest desires. What is the awakening? This is the moment in time when humanity rises up out of the darkness. Who is awakening? Each one of us present on earth today, reclaiming our sovereignty, seeking greater possibilities in our reality and looking for solutions. We know being awakened is not a lofty ideal, but a necessity. If we can transform ourselves, we can change the world. Guests on Her Conversations will speak to your spirituality, sensuality, soul. Listen to their stories, hear how they are in service to the world. Let their words and these conversations embolden and inspire you. My guest on this week's episode is Theresa Fowler, spiritual guide, matrix slayer, author and speaker. During our conversation, we talk about all we are witnessing during this awakening period, the individual trauma, the effects of people not grieving, and the realities within the spiritual community. Theresa also shares her own discoveries about health and aging as a woman. So as always, I begin by asking my guests, Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. When do you feel you're most her?
When I find the laughter in whatever situation, because even in my darkest hours, I've always been able to find the humor. And I know that in those years when I was depressed, that's what kept me alive, because I could always have a laugh.
Perfect. I'm inappropriate. I can be inappropriate with laughter as well, but I get it.
But what's inappropriate, right? What's inappropriate?
Well, we get kind of told what's comedy and what's not comedy and
I've got a very funny story about that. I grew up Catholic, Catholic, and my brother and I used to giggle in mass all the time because we found it hilarious. Because it is hilarious. It's ridiculous, right? So I innately knew that as a child. And my father's funeral, 10 o'clock in the morning. I mean, I can't say anything because I also had some alcohol and Valium so that I could make my way through it. But the priest who conducted the mass, when we walked in, we could smell the alcohol on him. So I don't know if he had had a drink that morning or if it was from the night before, but my brother and I completely recognized that. During the mass, he stumbled and almost fell into the casket.
Oh.
The entire congregation was like, and my brother and I were like, because we knew that was our dad. We knew. So talk about inappropriate, whatever. We thought it was hilarious. So in the darkest hour, there was still something to laugh about.
Perfect. I'll have to tell you my funny funeral stories later. It's not about me today. Before we get deeper in, I just want you to just introduce yourself, just talk a little bit about your story and where you're at today, and then we'll go in.
Okay, long story short, because that's really long. Let's say, my complete awakening journey started in earnest about 13 years ago. Before then, which was when my dad died. Before then, I was depressed. I had chronic fatigue syndrome. I was obese. I was like 7 stone heavier. I was an alcoholic. I was a recreational drug user. I was a mess. Full-time job. I was working about 60 to 80 hours a week. I was like, just, a Duracell rabbit. I was just going, partying, working, blah, 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 but a mess in my head. And when my dad died, it was a complete, I had a moment standing at his graveside after the priest almost fell into his casket. And what I now know was my higher self, but I thought it was my crazy voice, whispered into my ear, "Get healthy." I was like, "You what?" It's like, "Get healthy." And I was watching the casket go down, get healthy. I didn't know what it meant, but I knew that I had to do something about it, or else I was going to be following him to the grave really soon. And if I had kept going the way I was, there's no way I'd be sat here talking to you now. Absolutely no way. So yeah, that started a journey, and it started with the body. I I was so blessed that a gay gym opened up about 5 minutes away from from my house about 2 weeks after I came back from the funeral. And I was like, oh, a gay gym. Perfect. I walked in going, I need help. The boys were like, we can help you. And I stayed in that gym for 6 years. It was one of the best things that ever happened to me. And through that journey of regaining my health back, then came, because I also became a personal trainer. Oh, I was a journalist for 25 years. So that fueled the unhealthy lifestyle big time. And when I got my body back, it was like, oh, I'm going to teach other women over 40 how to regain their health. Menopause. No, never mind that. Let's have healthy bodies. But I realized after about a year and a half, why are my clients, I'd only work for people for 12 weeks because you can do a lot in 12 weeks. Right. And it's like, right, now you have the tools, you do the rest of the work, because this is about empowerment. But when I'd go back and follow up with them, I'd notice like 6 months down the line, they would go back to their old habits. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I couldn't understand why you would get to a certain point, start feeling better about yourself, and then go back and do what you were doing. I couldn't get it. And that's when I got into the mindfulness stuff. But really dug deep, and, all the Bob Proctor work, all that stuff, really dug deep, but got trapped because I was like doing all the things and, doing all the things, but completely got trapped. Because I was always a very clever person anyway, and thought intellect was it. And it was just like, yeah, but I've got all this stuff in my head. Not realizing that it was the connection of the heart. And that was a massive big slap from the universe because the universe literally knocked me down. And like literally knocked me down. And because I'd been doing all the mindfulness work, I was like, okay, universe, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? And the little voice came into my ear again and said, love yourself. And my mind was going, yeah, but I've learned to like myself, but I don't love myself. And yeah, that journey started in earnest in January of 2017. Yeah, so, yeah. How long is that now? That's
5 years.
5 years.
Gosh, math's never good.
Yeah. Maybe it's 2016, because I wrote the book in 2018. Yeah. So, yeah, about 5-7 years. And when I finally felt that self-love on a cellular level, that's when everything changed. And that's what I did. Basically, that is the basis of what I teach. So, and through that self-love journey, it's opened me up spiritually. And I never thought, like I said, I was indoctrinated Catholic. I sort of excommunicated myself from the church. I was like, I want nothing to do with this. I'm an atheist. It's all bullshit, blah, 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 blah. And now I've completely come back full circle, but I've found spirituality and God in myself and realized, yes, we are all one, but we are God individuated here on this crazy spiritual ride. Yeah.
Isn't it amazing how we all kind of start, well, if you do take the journey, you know what I mean?
If you do take the journey, exactly.
If you do take the journey, you start at home base and you kind of go, you go on this kind of like meander all the way around through lots of different, I think we spoke before of all the different modalities with kind of all the kind of like different kind of things that I've been through. I was kind of going through all of them. I don't even think I remember half of the ones that I've been through. There's like, is it connecting consciousness? There used to be this YouTube channel that was, I can't even find them now, but there was a guy called Burnett Bain.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember that one? Burnett Bain and another guy. One was like kind of like a Hollywood actor type, and another one was what was that? That had something to do with consciousness in it as well. And I'm trying to remember something consciousness, but I used to watch that like all the time. I was so into it. It's about 7-8 years ago now, that one, wasn't it? And they used to really speak about things in a really interesting way. And I really liked them. And then that kind of went away and they stopped doing that.
You know,
then I meandered into what's his name? Bentino Mazzaro. I don't know if
you know what's really funny though? I ran into him when I was living in Holland because somebody suggested it. And I watched him for probably about 6 months, but I always have this innate, so I'm a human design reflector. I have always had this innate ability to see psychopath, but I didn't trust it. Now I trust it.
Yeah. That was an interesting one as well, because it was speaking from such a lofty kind of, and there's a lot of sense in there, or there was a lot.
Absolutely.
What was spoken about made a lot of sense. Let me make it clear. So what was spoken about made a lot of sense. Yes. What I didn't really kind of come to realize until, I don't know, I just kind of got to a point where I wasn't really into it anymore, and I'd find, I was a bit of a shiny penny kind of moving around when I was like reading books and just trying to put things together in a way that like made sense to me, so I could kind of like map my life in a way that wasn't the way that I came from, because I didn't know where I was going. All I knew was like, I don't want that. And that's not necessarily a roadmap. It's like, I don't want to go there. So you just run the opposite way and you just end up running into all sorts of things. So yeah, I kind of came away from it, but there was something about it that wasn't, and I couldn't work out what it wasn't, because I liked the speak and I wasn't really kind of looking at what was really at the core of it. And the core of it was personality.
Yes.
And this whole kind of thing. Yeah.
That's the new cage bullshit.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And in the time of kind of spending time moving through all of these different modalities, realizing that many of the time, if I kind of go back to what pulled me in the first instance, it was usually personality.
Yeah.
In the way that we've always been, or the way that society is set up to kind of look to authority and idols and personality. So even if you're going on a spiritual path, a lot of the time you're being sucked in. Yeah, you're being sucked in by the personality and then not realizing that it sounds all good and you've got a group of like-minded people, but usually we're kind of pulled in by a similar wound, and that also keeps us
exactly.
And just
exactly
talk about that, because I think what's so interesting, and your way of putting it, new cage, is because people, we move away from what we consider to be mainstream. We reject religion because it's so heavy and dogmatic and narrow in its way. But then at the core of it is, like God and that kind of like, or universe or creator or whatever. But you have a belief in something that is greater that you're part of. But you move away from it because of all the things that are not good about that. And yet then go into this opposite end where there's just as much dogma. There's more cultism.
There's more cultism in the new cage than, well, as you know, you lived in Bali for a bit as well, right? Yeah. I was near Tulum. The same kind of thing. As long as you have some mala beads and some sage and the right clothing, then you can pretend that you're all spiritual and blah, blah, blah. And yet I observe these people in their daily lives not walking the walk, having all sorts of fucked up polyamorous relationships. And it's like, hello? It's like, hello. It is a new cage because it looks good on the outside, but most of these people are fucked up because they haven't dealt with their shadow. They haven't dealt with their trauma. Like literally everything is about trauma, I've come to realize. Everything everything completely messed up in the world is about trauma.
Unchecked, unhealed trauma, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, okay, the bifurcation of this spiritual awakening is who has dealt or is dealing with their trauma and who isn't.
Right.
That's literally it.
Yeah.
That's literally it.
And it's showing up more because the more people that I speak to, obviously I speak to a lot of different people for the podcast, and we invariably go back to a situation when we're talking about something that is just like, this is the bit that I have to deal with. This is the bit that keeps turning up. And I was saying to a friend earlier, even I had a moment of an old little bit of something that I hadn't dealt with, that I had to like deal with over the course of yesterday, because it was like Facebook had reminded me that it was someone's birthday, and it's somebody that I had to make a decision to step away from, because the friendship wasn't working on a level that I needed at that point in time. This is like about 3-4 years ago. And when it really cut at the time, because I'd made a decision to kind of step away from an abusive situation, and then thought the person that I can really speak to about this is my long-term friend of like 20 odd years. Yet when the person that I'd stepped away from had kind of got to them first and filled their head with all of this kind of stuff. So then when they were like, I was trying to be heard with them, they just couldn't hear it. And I had to like walk away from that whole thing. And because like everything was in tatters and everything had kind of crashed at that point, I didn't really deal with it. I didn't have time. I had to like put the phone on and keep going forward and just be like, okay, you know, and not thinking that, but it hurt hard. I think it hurt harder than the thing is the fact that someone that you trusted outside of your family, someone that you'd chosen to be your family, had let you down. It's one thing being born, but it's one thing choosing and then them letting you down, you know?
And being let down, exactly.
So that whole thing, like Facebook trying to remind me and just like, remember this person? You're like, yeah, you know, and I just had to have a day of, I was saying to a friend earlier, of what I call managing my disappointment, because there's so many times when I've just kind of put like a Band-Aid on something, and then it comes up and
the wound
it comes up again. Exactly. And I had to like really just deal with, let me really accept that I was done bad by this person. Let me really kind of own up to the fact that I got deeply hurt, instead of going, yeah, it's all right, fair enough. You know, it was like, it hurt bad. So I had to kind of deal with that. Let me deal with the fact that I know that I didn't deserve that treatment. You know, it's like, I wouldn't have done that. Let me deal with the fact that the way that I was shown up in the world allowed that person to think that I could be played like that. So I have to take some response, you know, it's all of those kind of things.
Let me deal with the grief.
Yes. Yeah.
Grief is a huge one. Grief has been a huge one, especially over this past year or so. Not just with the extra people dying from, you know, whatever, but the fact that a lot of relationships are broken up because of all this bullshit, because of masks, because of who got the quacks and who didn't. A lot of relationships are broken up, and people aren't grieving that even. It's all this like blaming back and forth, and you did this and you did that. It's like the fact that even in the awake community, right? When you ask, I just want all this to be over. Why exactly? Why is that? I just want it to be over. Yeah, but it's outside of you. You can't control it. And why do you want to make somebody do what you want them to do? You're just as bad as they are, and you're only doing that because you're operating from a place of trauma, because everybody has to do what you want them to do because you're right. It's just are you really?
And another thing I've heard someone say, and every time I kind of hear them say, I just wince a little bit, because I'm like, one, I haven't worked out a reasonable response, but you know, because they had to deal with a lot of like separation of people that they'd known for decades that counted as part of their circle. When everything went down, people were blaming, you should be doing that, you should be in your house, and they chose not to do that. You know, so they were awake to certain kind of things, but where when they keep saying, I can't wait for people to really start suffering, people to really start, you know, and when I hear that, I'm just like, Like,
Ooh.
you saying that is just telling me that, like, should it happen at the rate that you think you want it to happen, and you want all the people that you tried to warn that went against what you were saying to start having like death and destruction on their doorstep, you mentally aren't ready for it. You're not mentally ready for it.
Exactly. You're completely still stuck in your ego and haven't dropped into your compassion yet.
Because if that's what you're waiting for, when those people start having those things happen on like a multiple basis and they turn to you for help, you're not going to have the capacity for it. Exactly. You know, and that's it's like, I mean, it's like so tricky and so hard on so many levels, because we're watching things like move slowly. Yeah. But, you know, as much as we want to kind of get to the other side of whatever this is, wherever it is, it moving at this incremental rate, I think, is right, because it's just giving us time to kind of deal with the little sticky corners. Exactly.
But this is giving us time to integrate and really go within and tap into who it is we are. That's the whole point. Yeah. That's why I call myself now. What somebody called me the other day? Because I used to call myself the thought shifter when I was like in the mindset stuff. I was just like, right, I can help you shift your thoughts. And it was a friend yesterday. She was just like, ooh, you can now be the soul shifter. And I was like, kind of like that. I'm a soul guide. I just help people see who they are. Because being a reflector as well, right? What is a reflection? It's a mirror. So of course, all of our relationships and things are mirrors. But I'm kind of like, I will see your shit and reflect it right back to you. And it's fun to play with people who are ready for that. But everybody else, I literally trigger.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to see because they can't recognize what it is that is being given as an opportunity to them, because it just feels like pain, and it's uncomfortable. And when you're not used to that kind of like, oh my God, that, you know, and all that stuff that comes up, and you haven't worked out a way to like kind of take a beat, take a breath, and then respond, as opposed to just spew out.
Yeah, exactly. Just like spewing, you're like, whoa. But you know, thing is, my life has been pretty painful. Like, physically, mentally, spiritually. I was 58 a couple of weeks ago. I'd say, except for the past 7 or 8 years, my life was in a lot of pain. And even in those 7 or 8 years, last year I spent most of the year in bed because I had an issue with parasites internally, both physically and energetically. So there's been a lot of pain. There's been a lot of pain in my life. But there's always been something that's gone, even in the midst of that pain. And when I get pain now, it's kind of like, okay, what are you trying to tell me? What do I have to look at here? Because all pain is a symptom of something that's out of alignment.
Yeah. But the way that way that society has been up until this point is just kind of band-aided, suppressed.
Band-aided, yeah. You don't want to feel the pain. I don't want to feel the pain, because if you've got a mental pain, I used to say all the time, let's go down to the pub, get out of my head. So if you've got a mental pain, what do? You grab a drink, forget about it. Let some demons in that way, right? Yeah. Subject for the days, right? If you have a physical pain, take a painkiller. Don't feel the pain. No, you're supposed to feel the pain. That's the whole point. You're supposed to feel everything. We're here. Our souls came here to experience everything. Especially now, we're literally living in an apocalypse. That doesn't happen often. That's not an everyday occurrence. I remember you've come across Dolores Cannon, surely.
Yes, yeah. I was watching a little bit of her earlier. It was actually someone was alluding to her because he'd made it's a guy from Inspired Channel, and he'd done something a couple of days ago where he was talking about, you know, how many people, how many actual souls are they in the world? How many people are actually actively playing a role and active souls, and how many are background people, NPCs, whatever you want to call them, you know? What, like, exactly. How many are there going on? Because, and then he kind of like came back, because I think he had a lot of questions from people going, whatever do you mean? And also it's like, doesn't sound like the most loving thing that you can ever say. But he's like saying sometimes truth is truth. And there are people out there that, you know, you have tried to engage with on a certain level. And that's not saying that you're going in and going all spiritual and woo-woo or anything like that. But you just, there are some vessels on, you know, that you encounter in your life that are non-questioning about their existence. Exactly. They don't seem to have anything other than what is in front of them and what is fed, you know. And you just imagine
literally running on the subconscious programming.
Yeah.
They're just running on this data. It's just like data that they're not engaging at all. Just a couple of things. Bob Proctor, first time I heard one of his lectures, I remember going, "You're under the impression that people think." It's like, but most people don't think. It's like only about 15% of people think. And I remember going, oh shit, this makes so much sense. Because I could never, even as a kid, I had 4 library cards by the time I was 7. I preferred to hang out in the library reading encyclopedias and playing with other kids because I didn't get them. And like, I was so blessed to have lots of really cool teachers. They actually wanted to teach as a vocation. So, you know, I'd be like, oh, I read this. And they'd be like, okay, you want to do this for extra credit? And I'd be like, yeah. And so like, I couldn't understand why people didn't use their brain. I was like, we've all got one. Especially all the alcohol that I drank and drugs that I took. I mean, I messed my brain up, right? And still, I use my brain more than most people. So Dolores Cannon talking about the backdrop people, that was like a huge one for me as well. I was like, oh, of course, okay, that makes sense. Oh, right, so some of us really are kind of like that whole chosen ones thing. And it's not to be big-headed at all, but it's like, no, that's kind of that's what I'm observing. Like,
or maybe, because like then people will be like, oh, that's so it's spiritually egotistical and all this kind of thing. Well, maybe they were just never souls. You know, maybe there are only a few of us here, and there are, just like she says, you know, extras on set. And we're the ones that are like we're working it out.
Our own movie, right? Exactly. And it makes so much sense. And it's not like she made all this stuff up in her head, right? These are what the people were telling her from their sessions. And I've also read, Michael Newton, her protege, who wrote those books, Journey of the Souls.
No, I don't think I've read any of those.
Oh, right, yeah. He was one of her QHTT proteges, and he wrote about 4 books, I think, about his clients and the stories they would tell, and it was insane. I remember hearing her say, and this was years ago, I remember hearing her say, so, you know, when you get to this time, this coming that's going to happen, you know, in the 2000s, she was like, people will literally be dying to get back in. This is like the biggest show that has ever happened in galaxies beyond. I was like, oh. And my soul chose here to be
exactly. Front and center.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Pretty cool. So of course, I have days, especially because I can feel the collective energy. You know, of course, there are days when it's just like, oh God, you know, what's in the news? Do I even want to see what's in the news? Because like I can feel that our body's like, ugh. Of course, I still have down. It's life's a wave. Everything. Frequency is a wave, right? So of course, I have down days. But in those down times, it's like, okay, well, let's do something that will make me feel better, or let's just completely unplug and draw, or let's go ground in nature. and remember that my soul chose to be here.
Yeah.
Soul chose this.
Good
in
reminder.
the grandest scheme of things, my soul chose to be here now. This isn't about what Theresa ego is talking about. My soul chose here to be here now. We are souls having a human experience.
And isn't it a thing? Watching the whole, watching everything shift and kind of like turn over and people kind of pop out, you know, like all of these kind of like old films, like obviously Matrix, I suppose, is the one that everyone thinks about as the one that they can like refer to. But if you kind of dig in the archives of cinema history, these have been played out from Metropolis. So let's go back there.
Metropolis, exactly. Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Wizard of Oz.
The stories have been told like time and time and time again. And when you see it and when you kind of like really take it on board, it's like, but then what do we do with this experience? What do we do with this time? And it's, you know, when you're talking about everyone's got a trauma that they need to work through or they're just not going to make it, because like that's the way that it kind of gets you. That's the way that it will trap you and pull you into your thing. And there's a lot of talk in the spiritual community of shadow work, and you've done shadow play and everything like that.
Because I did the same thing when I was in the woo-woo side of spirituality. So woo-woo and spirituality and like, you know, spirituality completely different. Woo-woo is the kind of like, oh, love and light, and I'm just gonna vibrate higher and like, I did that. I did that because when I felt that self-love, when I finally felt it, it was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then it was just like, right, I'm just going to be spiritual and just like, you know, open my third eye because it feels better. It feels good, right? However, we are here on Earth. Mother Earth has all the nourishment that we need to be on Earth. We need to ground to her. We need to be grateful that she's allowed us here, right? So we need to be grounded as well. And all that root chakra trauma, I mean, that's where the beast, I call it the slave code matrix. That's where the beast system holds us down magnetically. And you know, think about it. So the internet became a thing in the past, 25 years? It's a thing. Why is it that there's like Pornhub and all these porn? Why is it? That's like freaking everywhere. And apparently you don't have to pay for it. Like you can just get free porn whenever you want. Like what's that about? What's that about? Like, so yeah, people own, oh yeah, I watch porn. I'm like, it's beast code shit. That's not teaching you conscious love. So how can you expect to watch porn and call in a conscious partner? It's not working. Porn is feeding that trauma from our root chakras. So everybody has trauma. Yeah, everybody's definitely got trauma, and it starts in the root chakra. Even from birth, because babies at the moment are not welcomed into this world at all. And most are conceived through traumatic sex.
Right.
Even if you're having a good time, it's still trauma because you're feeding it from a place that's not conscious.
And there's so much that can be said for that. And well, let's riff on that for a moment, because like that's the core of everything. The core of creation is the relationship between the man and the woman. And we can see the way that the idea of like, well, let's start here. The idea of a man and a woman already that in its.
I know. Oh my God! I know. I saw that film. I thought it was a joke when I saw the preview for that film. I thought it was a joke.
Which one?
Matt Walsh's film, What Is a Woman?
Oh, do you know what? I've still not. I've seen the trailer I need to give this like time when, if I'm watching something like that, I'm like, I know I can't just go in there with an entertainment brain. I need to give this my 100% attention and also be in my body. It's going to be triggering me, and the whole ridiculousness of it and all of these things are going to be coming out, and I need to be in a strong place to watch it. So I've still not watched it.
I actually need to watch it again.
I've not got there yet. A couple years back, I was on a panel doing some sort of talk, and just, when people starting to talk about this kind of gender thing, and it's not deleted, I know, because the internet's forever, right? But and I was just like literally there going, well, maybe I'm just a bit old-fashioned, questioning my own, just like, well, maybe I'm old-fashioned then, that I just don't get that there's like 50 million genders now. I don't get it.
It made me laugh. I saw this meme a while back, and it was just like, I think it was, there weren't as many on the T-shirt. It said something like there were 35 genders. I think now there's like 72 or something freaking ridiculous.
How to get there? I don't understand.
Well, no, there aren't. This is some bullshit somebody's made up in their head, right? But the T-shirt said like there's 35 different genders, and then the sizing next to it was man or woman. I mean, okay, this is the thing. You can clearly identify whatever the fuck you want to identify. I literally do not give a shit. If you want to tell me that you're a skyhawk and you're this or that, I literally don't care. Do whatever you want to do. However, don't tell me that I'm wrong about the fact that there are two skeletons of human beings, one with wider hips because it gives birth, one with narrower hips because it's born with a cock. End of story. That's just biology. That's just nature. Telling nature that it now has 72 different ways of being is not true. That's just some fantasy bullshit you've made up in your head, and you've been indoctrinated to believe that. End of story. Like literally end of story.
It's what is interesting when I watch it, and then watch the play of it, because I've still, like I said, I've not seen the film, but watch the play out of it. And either because I'm not really in that world and I'm not around people who are kind of identifying left, right, and centre, all the rest of it. Mm-hmm. The people that come forward on social media that are talking in a special way and are admonishing other people for not recognizing their choices and their vision and their pronouns and things like that, seem to be of a certain type.
They are completely only of a certain type.
And the energy that you get from them is one of delusion and mania.
And they're all on psychotropic drugs. They've all been on Ritalin since they were 4. They're not right in the head, and they've been indoctrinated by people who are working for the beast system. They didn't just pop up out of nowhere, right? This has been a 20-year indoctrination that their parents have to take some of this blame. Their parents took their eye off the ball because they were too busy doing their lives, not paying attention to their kids, giving them freaking iPads to play with instead of books to read. Right? So the parents have a lot to blame, and the people who are teaching them also have a lot to blame. But it is this weird demographic, this weird Gen Z, and TikTok. I mean, have you heard of the TikTok tick?
No. Tell me what that is. I've heard of some weird things, but I don't know what that is.
The TikTok tick is affecting teenage girls, especially. Well, they're the ones mostly on it. And they are developing kind of like a Tourette's. Because girls don't really get Tourette's. I mean, they do, but, it's like negligible. It's like a version of Tourette's where they're kind of doing these TikTok dances and Tourette's kind of things. The TikTok tick.
I mean, it's just look, and the thing is, I before, and even, because I'm 50 in a couple of months, to think about that. And I always thought, well, maybe I'll have children, you know, and I've left it so long and I've been working on myself, so I haven't found a partner, because I'm damned if I'm doing that crap on my own. You know, I'm just not good at no way. You know what I mean? No way. I saw it done. It was hard and it was done, but no way.
That's been by design as well.
Well, yeah, for the child's sake and my sake, because one, I know what I'm like when I'm not at home. I don't really speak. I just like being quiet, and that's not an environment to bring child. You know, they need interaction. But it's like, I will only do that, one, when I've kind of felt like I've kind of opened up, like cleaned out a lot of the stuff that means that I stop attracting these kind of crazy, like toxic people. Yes. And then I can build from there, and time's gone on. And I still was open to the idea. And then now, just seeing the world as it is, I'm like, I don't know. And it's not to say that I wouldn't give birth to the Messiah of sort, you know what I mean, right? But also it's like, would I be a conscious enough parent that would be there all the time to make sure all of this outside stuff doesn't infiltrate? Exactly. Because that is just some crazy ass. And like you say, many of the parents of those children are so absent. One, they're checked out from their own self. I think it's like, yes. And they're also still trying to very much hold on to the fact that they're young still.
They don't want to take the responsibility of being a parent.
Yeah, exactly. Take the responsibility of being parent, take the responsibility of maturing in any level. So you've got these abandoned children that then just kind of turn to, like, say, like their education system or their technology to actually fill their head with ideas. And then we've got this generation that, you know, that technically our generation, we need to stay alive longer, because normally they'd be the generation that would be wiping our asses in 30 years time, and we can't have it.
Absolutely. I've been saying, I was like, I have a feeling that this kind of Gen Z, because I've also heard them called Generation Alpha.
That's the one after the new ones that are just like literally being born now. The ones that
okay. They're the ones. They're the ones who will be bringing in the new earth. Now, saying that, I do know some Gen Z who are completely awake, but they don't associate with their own. They're like the older souls who are coming to us, sort of like, you know, the crone generation. They're coming to us going, oh my God, help, because like I can't be with my generation. And so I like that whole Gen Z. I think those are the ones who are going to need a lot of help if they make it. They may not make it.
Yeah.
They may not make it.
Because I watch as well the way that technology is being sold to them, that metaverse thing, and the adverts that I see on like bus shelters. I'm always looking at advertising, and because this is what you're telling people, this is what people subconsciously take in, and you're just seeing people in their front rooms with these visors on, playing tennis, and you're just like, I remember when we used to go and do that, like out in the.
There's a couple of Instagram accounts that I follow just for the hilarity of it. One's Libs of TikTok. Have you ever seen Libs of TikTok?
I'm aware of them.
On TikTok, obviously, but Libs of TikTok on Instagram, they just show all these like insane people. You're just sort of like, wow. You have to know what you're dealing with, right? You have to know.
You do need to know your enemy.
You have to know what you're dealing with, right? Insane. And the other one is Influencers in the Wild.
Influencers in the Wild I follow, because that is what anyone will do for a selfie. They'll put themselves in mortal danger.
Like literally. There was one the other day of this woman in an airplane. Like people are like literally waiting to board the aircraft. And she's got the whole VR head, and she's like falling all over the place in the airport lounge. And I'm like,
yeah, for the shot though, for the gram.
For the gram. I literally heard the other day that people are buying land in the metaverse.
Yeah.
I was like, hold on. Oh no, people
isn't it like second
buying land in the metaverse? I was like, but there is no land in the metaverse because it's not real.
Yeah.
It's just like the whole
major companies are kind of going into this new like Web3. because I got an email, because I do some tech stuff. They're like, do you want to kind of get involved in Web3? I'm like, no, I think I want to go and like live on a field,
live on a farm,
in a little shack, and just like paint pots in the sunlight, and let me see out my days that way.
Exactly.
Because I don't know that I just want to, and I spend way too much time online. I know that already. But I'm like, already, I'm just thinking I need to kind of I need to slow myself down, because I can see how, if you've never seen anything other, and that's such a suggestible age as when you're just leaving home 19, 20 and going out into the world, and the world already tells you that your parents and anyone older than you just like so out of date, haven't got a clue about anything, so this is the future, this is what it is, and it will just kind of suck you in.
And you haven't been outside as a child. I saw something the other day that like this generation is like going to be the sickest ever, because they don't get sunlight. They've been eating processed food all their lives. They're just sick. Like nature, they're terrified of nature. They don't even know what nature is.
Well, if you get told about, viruses and like...
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, and you have to wear a mask. You can't breathe ever, because everything's going to come get you.
And so out of touch with soul.
Because humans are nature. We are nature. Nature will provide everything for us. Like this whole technological... this is going into the transhumanism thing, right? I've been telling people to talk about transhumanism for years, because I've read something by, what's his name? Not the Harari, not the little Klaus Schwab demon, the other one. The other one, Ray Kurzweil.
Wow, okay.
He's been going on about this for at least 20 years. He still works at Google. Like, evil. This dude's evil. He's been talking about transhumanism for years, how we're going to have chips in our brains, and everybody's like, oh my God, Elon's a savior. He's telling you right out that he wants to put fucking chips in your brains. Sorry, no.
Right.
No. Bye. I came here to be natural. End of story.
Yeah.
That's what God is. All this transhumanism shit goes against God. It just does. God, source, prime creator, universe thingy, goddess, whatever you want to call it. Whatever the frick you want to call it. I've just started calling it God again because it's easy, right?
It is.
Prime source creator. That we are all individuated from that, and that's natural. That is nature. That is who we are. All this transhumanism, AI bullshit is dark slave code energy, and I'm not having it. And I know that that's why our soul chose to be here now, because it's literally at the crux of this spiritual war. I'm not having it.
I think also if you've managed to develop some sort of relationship and communication with God, I know people get triggered by God. One thing that I'd seen years ago, I can't remember who it was, if the thought of calling it God triggers you, just think of it as good, orderly direction.
That's Michael Beckwith. That sounds like something Michael Beckwith would say.
Maybe, but for some reason, I think it was a woman. I can't remember. Okay. It's been years of me just consuming things.
Orderly direction. I like
orderly direction. But, because I know that some people, like, even when they've got a deep spiritual connection, they just can't say God,
I couldn't, even until about a year ago, I would kind of go, I don't want to say, because like all the Catholic trauma, right?
Right.
I had to go,
People want to, you don't want to say source, or if you want to say,
Yeah, but that's right. I kind of call it, when I write about it, I was like God/goddess/source/prime creator/universe -thingy.
Some people really choke on the word. It's like they just, it literally cannot come out of their mouths. They can't say God. And then it was just, like me kind of in that meandering moments in the morning going like, why is that? And why can't they say it? The thought that came to me, it's like the same as some people call me Carol, some people call me Carol May, some people call me Kaz. As long as none of them are insulting, I'll respond to them.
Yes.
So allow people to communicate to you in a way that's comfortable to you and respectful, and then you'll respond. If they start calling you like anything else but something respectful, then allow yourself to call it what you need to call it.
What you need to call it, exactly. But you need to acknowledge that it is, because I think the reason why most people find it so triggering is because of the whole slave code matrix. Because it pulled us away from God so far. It's like really trying its hardest to pull us completely away from God. And it's a soul. That's what the harvest is. So everybody goes, oh, the apocalypse. And it was like, no, we are literally in the apocalypse, because the apocalypse actually means the lifting of the veil. And the more light that those of us who are doing that shadow work, those of us who are doing the inner work are shining more light, which means that there's going to be more darkness uncovered as the veil's lifting.
Well, I keep saying Armageddon just because when I'm speaking to a friend, I'm just, I just added another bag of chia seeds to my Armageddon stores. So I'm doing good as well. It's going to be a hell of boring diet, but I'm not going to go. I'm not going to talk.
I've got quinoa. You can make that sweet. You can make that sweet or savory.
Chia seeds, lentils, lots of it will be boring, but it's good old fashioned protein. Then I'll be in good shape. I'll be in good shape, and I'll last a long time. And we just eat every other day. So
every other day, exactly. I'm used to fasting after the whole parasite thing last year. It was just I got used to fasting, and I was like, yeah, I can go days without eating. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
Oh, but I'm kind of looking forward to this, because I was like, oh my God, food crisis. And I was like, yeah, it's going to be a good thing. Because I remember at the height, right at the very beginning of the whole pandemic, and going into Waitrose, and I was expecting to see all these empty shelves everywhere. And yes, some of the shelves weren't stocked to the brim in the aisles where I wouldn't buy anything anyway. So all the stuff in boxes, and I was buying organic strawberries. all the produce was still there. All the real food. There was tons of it. So I'm kind of looking forward to this sort of food shortage thing, because people are literally going to be forced to detox.
That in itself is a spiritual practice. You've got to find a connection.
Because I tell you what, in this journey of losing 7 stone or more, the fat cells hold all your toxicity, heavy metals, anything. We're literally living in a toxic environment because the slave code matrix has been trying to kill us and poison us since we came out the womb, right? We are literally poisoned constantly, which is another sort of plus to the strength of the human, the human, not just the body, but the whole spirit. It's just wow, we put up with a lot of shit and we're still here. Hey, right? So in order to, navigate that toxicity, we have to detox every now and then. And what better way to do it than fast? But yeah, your fat cells hold a lot of toxicity, a lot. And when the fat cells, the receptors on the fat cells, when they're just completely full of toxins, then they'll just create new fat cells to hold more toxins. So that's what happens with the replication of getting fatter. It's not really about, yes, it is about the processed food you're eating, but it's mainly the toxicity. And once you get rid of that toxicity overload, you don't even want to eat that shit food anymore. I remember everything changed when I was just thinking one day, and this was only about 3 months into it. And my diet beforehand was basically beer, fish pie from Tesco, cheese baguettes, because I didn't eat meat. I didn't eat meat back then. I did. It was mainly beer, And
Wow.
crisps. Oh, and Walker's, ready salted crisps. That was basically my diet. So it was processed, but like it wasn't really food; it was just beer. And it was only probably about 8 weeks in, and I remember thinking, oh, okay, what do I? And I was like, ooh, I fancy some kale. I was just like, whoa. I
Who said
fancy
that?
kale. I was like, what? Whoa, something's changed. And like literally, it wasn't that long. It wasn't that long. But yeah, most people are toxic. So many people are on pharmaceutical medication, and that's basically toxic as well. Like, people are just over toxic. The toxicity levels are insane. So food shortages will be forced fasting.
If people can ride the fasting, because that fear of, like even if you communicate to someone that you're fasting, the first thing they think is you're going to drop dead.
No, I know, oh my God, you're going to die. In fact, I feel better after a fast. Yeah.
You can go for days. You can go for days without it. You can go for a good couple of days without drinking as well. They get that down.
I'm generally down to about 1 meal a day now.
Me too.
Yeah, that's been over the past sort of like 3 or 4 months. At first I thought it was something to do with the whole parasite thing. I was like, well, maybe I'm regulating back. And then the more I've been talking to people who are really doing the inner work, it's just like, oh no, we don't need as much food as we did. Interesting. This is very interesting. So this is something cellularly that's happening with our bodies.
But one thing I do notice is when I am at home, and like for the most part, I'm working from home anyway. So I don't want to be just getting up and like shoveling in stuff. Usually that momentary kind of, oh my God, I'm hungry. It's like a momentary thing that if you get on with something, unless you're properly hungry, you can ride it for another couple of hours quite easily.
And I've been back in the gym again for a month, just over a month. For the first time in like 3 years. I wasn't in the gym during the whole pandemic. I'm not like when I was, because I lift heavy weights, and it was just like, right, I was planning my meals and like I was like four times a day because I have to keep my energy up. Still only eating 1 meal a day. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting because I'm supposed to be, and I'm like, but I don't feel like it. I'm not hungry, so I'm not going to eat.
I got back into lifting this year as well, just as a, moving into my 50s and like potential menopause, whenever that's going to come or not, or because some people just, it doesn't come to them at all, So that's always interesting too. That's another thing that's of interest to me as well. And I don't even feel like I'm going into like peri or anything like that. I just still feel, here I am still kind of like moving around, but I was aware that like I'd lost a lot of body tone. I'd lost a lot of strength. Just all the things that had gone on. And I've been doing a lot of Pilates, but I didn't have that strength. So I got back into lifting. But what I was doing is like trying to work out, okay, so if I want to build the muscle up, what am I doing? So I got into the whole protein shake, creatine, drinking it pre-workout. I hated it. And I was trying to drink them first thing in the morning when I'm not a morning breakfasty person, to try and get this thing in so I could pre-workout. And I was starting to feel really bloated and flatulent and everything that was wrong. So eventually it was like, you know what, I'm just gonna do fasted workout.
Fasted workout, I feel so much better.
Yeah.
Even if that workout doesn't happen until 2 and 3 in the afternoon, I'm still doing a fasted workout, and then I'll eat my meal afterwards. And I ran into a friend yesterday. She was like, oh my God, you're looking good. And I was just like, yeah, that's literally only a month back in the gym. And I'm almost 60. That goes against everything. And I'm postmenopausal. It goes against everything that I was taught. I was like, this is interesting. One key for when the flashes do come, if they do, they're wisdom downloads.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Talk more about that.
Right. So this was when I was living in Holland. I had a young friend come to me who was like in a dilemma. I was just imparting some guidance. And it was funny because I remember going, oh, where's this coming from? Because it was just coming out and I realized I was channeling. So I was just like, in the moment, I was like, this is really fun. And then out of nowhere, I had the biggest hot flash that I've ever had. It was literally like somebody took a bucket of water and just poured it all over me. Like I was like literally dripping. And he's looking at me going, are you okay? And I'm like, this is fabulous. I'm in a flow. It was just literally the water was flowing. The channeling was coming out. I had no idea what I said to him, but he ended up in tears and he was just like, oh my God, thank you so much, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, that was freaking amazing. And I was like, they're not hot flashes, they're wisdom downloads. Duh, why didn't I see that before? And then after that, they didn't come as often. But when they did, it was really exciting. I was like, I'm getting a wisdom download. And it was really fun. And I was like, oh, yeah, of course, that's why they had us feared. Oh, feared. They're bad. They're terrible. No, they are wisdom downloads because it is the women. It is the wise woman, and not all women get to have it, right? Why do you think in America they like as soon as you stop having periods, they go like, right, you need a hysterectomy. Let's rip everything out so that you don't go through the menopause properly. It's all evil. It's all evil. It's to keep us away from again, it's root chakra trauma.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to have a hysterectomy. If you weren't supposed to have your bits, if you were after childbearing age, and they'd just fall out, wouldn't they?
Yeah, shrivel up and go. Like the body knows what the body knows.
Shrivel up and fall out.
But you know what? It's just been an interesting, when I just kind of like observe and really take on board what has happened to society and the way that we've been led and what we've believed and taken on as gospel. It happens because it happens. And there was someone who put on Instagram, and it was like some powerful stuff actually, but the way that she worded it was so strong. It really plays into the point, because having grown up with seeing family members turn into pharmaceutical junkies,
yes.
I've been really adverse to even taking an aspirin.
I haven't taken a paracetamol in at least 15 years. I won't go near them. No. So
she's called Taylor Ann Craig, but I'll just read all of what she said, because what she said was so true, because I heard it. And she said, triggering, but I cannot believe that people can look around at the state of our older population. And in brackets, she said, I didn't say elderly, even the middle-aged. She said, the misshapen bodies, the anti-coordination, the lack of muscle tone, the confusion, the dementia, the cancer, the fact that 1 in 6 is likely on antidepressants, and still trust modern science. Modern science has a test group, and they are right in front of you. Results are at every grocery stores, in line at every pharmacy. So uncoordinated that if they trip and fall, they can't even catch themselves. And some of you will really be thinking it's just natural aging. What other species ages into a different shape? Oh, wait. What other species is dependent on pharmacia to control their own blood pressure? I will tell you, this isn't science. This was strategic genocide. Yep. You have to be an android to trust a single word of modern science. We should be livid for what they've done to the human race. You are either on the side of healing, freeing humanity, or you are still under the spell, aka pharmacia. This society has become mentally weak. Discipline and self-creation principles were strategically bred out. How do I know? Because humans accept diseases that are literally disabling and won't change their diet and lifestyle. Animals in nature would gnaw their own limb off if it was caught in a trap. Meanwhile, humanity won't even take charge of their own immunity. They like their traps. This is disturbing. If you know who you really are, you understand that there is not a diagnosis in this world that can limit you. I speak from experience of self-healing. Study epigenetics, natural law, spiritual purification, detoxification, restoring the microbiome, neural retraining, doing the opposite of modern science. For every cause, there is a reaction. That is the real science. If this triggers you, stop being a victim.
Boom!
Yeah.
Boom. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I grew up thinking that when I got older, then, you know, I'll get fatter and then I'll have varicose veins and then I'll have high blood pressure. And then, you know, like this whole kind of thing. And it wasn't until I started to meet people who were not that, or saw versions of people who were not that, and started to change my diet and my thought, when I'm like, actually, that's not the case. But for a long time, I thought that was my fate, because I grew up, if I see the picture of the matriarchal generation in my family when they were young, it was almost like you just get a few years of being like a hot thing, and then then you just disintegrate, and that's not the story.
So my dad's obviously hearing this one, because I'm going to tell another story about my dad, which is hilarious. It's hilarious. So there is this joke, it's like, oh, diabetes runs in my family because nobody runs in my family. But he died from pancreatic cancer. And from diabetes. I was diabetic as well. I had just been diagnosed type 2 diabetic. Growing up, diabetes runs in the family, right? Everybody was always sick. Mm-hmm. And the irony is that my dad was an architect, and he specialized building hospitals. Oh. So if we weren't visiting somebody in hospital, we were visiting one of his hospitals. So I grew up thinking that was healthcare.
Right.
I grew up thinking hospitals meant health. Mm. I was also in hospital when I was 7. I had this weird abscess growing in the back of my skull. Everybody was always sick, so we were in the hospital. I didn't know what health was.
That ignorance about what health means has been what has just kind of really, you know, especially in the past couple of years, really just pushed people into, I just want to be healthy. I just want to, you know, it's for my health, not understanding what health is. Whereas most people, the majority of people are not healthy. They're just like on functioning level.
Yes.
You know what I mean? They can kind of get up and get to where they need to go to.
And you will function until your body eventually goes, yeah, fuck you. Mm. And gives you dis-ease.
Yeah.
It's not a disease, it's dis-ease. It's in the word. English is a language of spelling. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Everything's in the spelling. It's dis-ease. So what's the symptom? Okay. That symptom in your lower back, for instance. Everybody's got back pain. Everybody's got lower back pain. Oh, yeah. You know what that is? That's childhood rage. That's a trauma in your body that you haven't dealt with. Ooh, I've got problems in my knees. Yep, well, that's childhood trauma of you being scared of moving forward. Your body speaks to you. There's a brilliant book by, what's her name? Deb Shapiro, called Your Body Speaks Your Mind. Mm. Amazing book. It literally, it's like Louise Hay's
You Can Heal Your Life.
You Can Heal Your Life, yeah, but it goes deeper. Amazing book. And literally every single symptom in your life, whether it's a toothache, whether it's a headache, whatever, it's literally telling you which emotion you have trapped in your body and how you can help heal yourself. Literally, the human body is amazing. As I said earlier, we wouldn't be able to handle being bombarded with toxins because we are literally being poisoned. Remember all those old fairy tales used to read as a kid? Oh, you know, the so-and-so, the Joker poisoned the king or whatever. It's just that literally happens to us every day. Even if you're eating organic, I remember I was really angry about this for a long time. Even if you're eating organic food, you're being poisoned because of all the shit that falls down from the sky. And don't tell me, oh, it's chemtrails. No, bullshit. You know it's chemtrails. You are literally being poisoned constantly. But the fact that we're still alive,
that's something, isn't it?
Hello.
Yeah,
Like I
I
said,
think that's the part to remember.
I'm reverse aging. I'm almost 60. I feel like I'm reverse aging. I look like I'm reverse aging. People are like, how old are you? I'm like, yeah, almost 60. Check it out. You know why? Because my light is coming from the inside. It literally is that. That's why I know it's a spiritual war we're fighting. But we have nothing to fear, because whatever that dark slave code matrix mentality is, AI, whatever the fuck it is, it can't hit our spirit. It can't. It just can't.
Before we wrap then, just tell me like a little bit more of what you're doing for reverse aging, because what I see, especially as I'm getting older and moving into 50s and you know, like the women in my family live long, and the only reason they die is because of some illness, because they would hit 100 easy. And as far as like, you know, when I'm here, I'm thinking maybe people don't really think about how long they want to live. They don't plan for that. It's like, oh, I'm getting older now. I'm old. Just keep like repeating that sad old mantra. And one day, you know, then it's over. Where am I? I'm like, well, I'm turning 50 next month. What if I kind of plan out that I'm only halfway in? What if I play it like that? How far can I get? You know, let me kind of like live my life with caution and consciousness that I'm halfway down and I've still got another 50 to live. What can I get if I go in with that kind of energy, going like, we've only just started now. But there are so many women that hit this point where they're just still trying to be who they were in their 20s. I don't need to be that person.
I do not want to be that person, because I was depressed and hating myself, for starters. Like, people go, ooh, I want to be in my 20s and 30s. I'm like, no, I was obese and self-hating. I do not want to be in my 20s and 30s again. Not even in the early 40s. No, I don't want to be that again. The fact that I'm not obese anymore, I feel the healthiest I've ever been. I love myself completely. I think self-love, it's the start. You have to like literally feel love for yourself. Not all the new cage bullshit. Oh, love yourself, love yourself. No, that's self-care. And if you really loved yourself, you wouldn't be fucking around with some dude who wants to bring you into a polyamorous relationship. Hashtag just saying, right? I drop truth bombs, right? Just saying. Sorry, do you need a drink?
Let me just sip the water. But you know, I laugh because I've seen it happen, and it doesn't happen to me because obviously I don't put my face out on Instagram that enough, or but I know someone who's had like the slide into the DMs from the spiritual creeps.
Oh, spiritual fuckboys. There's so many of them. I can see them from a mile off, and these girls are all falling from going, oh, he's saying the right things. I was like, yeah, because he's a narcissist. Because he's a narcissist, and he studied what... In fact, there's some dude, I can't remember what his name was. There's some dude that I found who actually teaches like a spiritual fuckboy course. He actually teaches a course telling guys what they need to say to lure these girls in. And these girls who are all like, oh, I'm self-loving, oh, I'm flowing, oh. And then they're all like, I'm doing my lymphatic drainage massage, but I'm gonna do a reel in my thong, and I'm like, fucking using the slave code matrix trauma filters. If you were so spiritual and loved yourself, you wouldn't be needed to show your fucking ass on Instagram. Sorry. I'm just saying.
That's one part of it I do find very confusing, is like a couple of things that I find confusing. People that might have been having a little bit of a cry that morning, like we all have mornings where we have a bit of a cry. And then, before the tears completely evaporate, have got the phone out, like kind of just doing
a selfie. Oh, I'm crying because I'm feeling it. Like, really? If you were really in your process, you wouldn't be worrying about a fucking selfie. Hashtag just saying. Like I'm so sick of all this bullshit. All the just sick of it. Just sick of it. Because I can see through it. It's.
Yeah. But it's interesting how that mainstream narcissism has pulled into the spiritual community and has created just as toxic
Yes.
and performative spirituality than it is anyone who's on it and influencers in the wild. Anyway, but bringing it back to us and bringing it back to women who are in this period of time now that are seeing that there is a way of like not falling into the it's all down here from
it's all downhill.
It's all down here from here, sister. The way that it can actually be an uptick, because these are the times that when I used to think forward and got over the I'm going to be 50, when I started to get into the I'm getting older now, oh my God, I can't believe it. I'm moving into the point where I actually feel more confident in telling people I actually do not give a shit about what they think, without then going to second guessing myself. You know, it's like, actually, I don't. Like you don't know what I've been through to get here. I was just like, calm down. You know. So there's all of that, but I always had these visions of then I'll be able to sit around with other like wise sisters and talk about the wisdom, and I'm finding it lacking because there is still so many that are trying to put the brakes on and reverse.
Like, oh my God, I have to save my age. Like, okay, another thing, if you're sticking shit in your face,
no, don't do it.
Slave code matrix. Slave code. You're feeding the beast system. Why are you sticking artificial shit in your face to try to be? You can't stop a natural process.
Right.
Aging is a natural process. But just like anything, if you embrace it, I love telling people I'm almost 60 because they're like, huh? I'm like, right? You embrace it. It's just like the menopause. We have to come up with a new name for that.
Exactly, yeah.
The change. My mother used to call it change. The change is a gift. Not all women get to do it. They may die, or they listen to the quack who tells them that they need to pull all this shit out of them. Like, it's a gift. It's a rite of passage, just like puberty was, just like motherhood is. So it's a rite of passage, and it's our rite of passage into the wise world. It's a gift. So that's for starters. When we embrace that change as like, ooh, I get to do this. Not like, oh, it's happening to me. No, I get to do this. How fantastic is that? It's a privilege, not just a gift, it's a privilege. Because wise men don't go through this initiation. And I happen to believe that we are the innate wisdom we have within us is more powerful, which is why they've tried to crush it all these years. Why keep women away from high heels? That's another one. High heels. It stops women from being grounded.
Wow. Yeah.
And who designs high heels? Men. Huh? All right. Oh no, it makes you look sexy. No, it freaking hurts for start. Why are you causing pain to yourself because some man says you look sexy? It's stopping you from being grounded to who it is you are. So, because who's wearing high heels? Mostly women of childbearing age. It's stopping mothers from being grounded.
So let's kind of neatly tie a little bow on this one. What words of wisdom can you drop in? And also just let people know where they can find you as well.
It's cultivating that self-love, and you have to feel it. I like to say self-love's not a destination, and it's not a concept. It's feeling, and it's a being, and you literally have to feel it on a cellular level. Then you know, and when you know. It's not a concept. Oh, I love myself. No, when you know. So learn how to cultivate that, and that's what I teach. That's one of the things I teach. You can find me on Instagram. I think I'm the Theresa Fowler on Instagram. You can find me on Telegram as the Theresa Fowler. Odyssey, I'm Quantum Mother T. And my website, theresafowler.co. And that's Theresa with an H.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much for this. All of us are just kind of like shifting around within ourselves and kind of like rejigging our own circle of connection. And the connections that I'm making are just like way better than ever before.
Exactly. Oh, this is the other thing. Every single connection now, when you are shining that light, when you're being unapologetically you, no matter who you trigger along the way, the connections are insane. And this is all about soul connection now, big time.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Lovely talking to you.
Thank you, Theresa, for our conversation, and thank you for listening. You can find out more about me on my website. That's carolmaywhittick.com, carolmaywhittick.com. Also find me on Facebook under Carol May Whittick, Kazmic, Kazmick on Instagram, and on Telegram, Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening. So until the next episode, take care. Bye.